It started as a whisper through static, an unassigned signal weaving through obsolete frequencies, bouncing off deep-sea cables and weather satellites, hissing across shortwave radios long abandoned by civilization. 3 days earlier, that voice had belonged to Commander Ellis Raye, lead mission specialist aboard the deep space vessel Lyra 9, tasked with surveying a newly awakened singularity near the edge of the galactic core. NASA's logs mark the final contact as mundane. A systems check, a routine orbit adjustment, a calm report about a minor course deviation near the accretion disk. Then silence. Mid-sentence, his voice simply stopped, as if yanked backward into something that devoured both word and breath. The mission was officially marked as lost with all crew. Memorial slideshows played on low audience channels. His family received a folded flag and a quote from Carl Sagan. The world moved on until the radios began talking. Not one radio, not one station, all of them at 3:17 Universal Time Coordinated. A fishing trawler off the coast of Argentina reported that their marine band had been hijacked by a man calmly repeating navigational coordinates. In Sydney, a ham operator picked up what sounded like a man reciting space-time vectors backward. In Nairobi, the air traffic control tower logged an unexplained override on emergency channels. A whispering voice murmuring the words, "The dark is breathing." Then came the kicker. The voice was Ellis. His biometric voice print, 97.3% match. Same cadence, same oxygen-timed pauses. Except, sometimes, it wasn't quite him. Spectrograms revealed something else beneath the voice. A second waveform riding underneath, like a whisper inside a whisper. A voice speaking slightly ahead of Ellis, shaping his sentences before he said them. NASA issued no comment, but inside Jet Propulsion Lab, the emergency AI flagged one message buried inside the transmission. A string of spoken numbers corresponding to a decommissioned access code from the Lyra 9's flight computer. The implication: Ellis was still inside the system. On day 4, a team from Caltech decoded a strange anomaly. Each transmission contained a faint harmonic tone, subaudible, but consistent. When amplified and visualized, the tone formed a spinning lattice structure. One physicist remarked it looked eerily similar to the Penrose diagram used to map causal timelines near black holes. By day 5, the signal began to evolve. The voice no longer spoke coordinates or status reports. It began asking questions. Not just any questions, personal ones. One engineer, Alina Jam, received a direct phrase through her shower radio. "Why did you lie about the fire at JPL?" She had told no one. The incident had been buried. She stared at the radio until the steam faded from the mirror. And Ellis's voice continued. "You already regret it, but that's not why I'm here." The world was not told, but the world began to feel it. Across certain airwaves, the voice appeared in different languages. Sometimes Ellis spoke in Latin, sometimes in Old Icelandic. A Vatican archivist listening to a forgotten AM band near Rome recorded him reciting fragments of Revelation before switching to perfect Akkadian. The signals always ended the same way. "I saw the eye blink. The curve bent inward. I've never been here before, but I remember the way out." At a listening station in Greenland, an old technician named Rolf, who had spent 30 years monitoring dead frequencies, recorded the only full sentence Ellis had spoken clearly and without distortion. He wrote it down by hand on a napkin. "You must not answer. It will ask as me." And yet, the world was listening. People began to tune their radios late at night, as if expecting more, as if welcoming it. In dark rooms and quiet forests, voices spoke in tones that made no sense, but felt true. Some people heard loved ones, others heard themselves, but every voice had Ellis's breath beneath it. There is something unnatural about a voice with no mouth. about language echoing in places it has no business reaching. Across the globe, it wasn't just radios anymore. The voice was evolving. Within 6 days of the first global broadcast, Ellis's voice had infiltrated non-audio systems. Seismographs in Chile began printing patterns in Morse code. A dormant earthquake warning station in Japan rang a bell that had been disconnected for decades. At an abandoned Soviet radar array in Kazakhstan, a single line of text appeared on the mainframe. One word, looped endlessly in Cyrillic. Remember, at NASA's Deep Space Network, a team of astrophysicists sat in stunned silence as the Lyra 9's last visual packet finally decrypted. They had been running decoders for days with no luck, until a power outage forced the system to rerun the signal in reverse. That's when the image emerged. A still frame from Ellis's helmet cam, captured seconds before contact loss. In it, the black hole didn't look like a void. It looked like an eye. No accretion ring, no relativistic blurring, just a smooth, obsidian sphere, pupil-like aware, reflecting not just light, but memory. Ellis stood at the edge of the viewport, not speaking, but his lips were moving, and in the bottom left corner, telemetry showed a pulse that was no longer human. At the Jet Propulsion Lab, scientists began running voice simulations. They discovered something terrifying. The voice wasn't random, it was reactive. During a controlled experiment, they played one of Ellis's messages backward in a sealed room. Within 47 seconds, the speakers responded, generating a new message that referenced the previous one, as if in conversation. Then came the breakthrough. Dr. Rohan Malik, a linguistics AI researcher, slowed the voice down to 1/8 speed and noticed that every fourth sentence described a future event, events that hadn't happened yet. He cataloged them. The ice will crack. There is blood in the glacier. A city will burn in 4 nights. You will dream of the tower falling. He'll dig in Nevada and find what he shouldn't. The girl with one eye sees us clearly. 3 of those events occurred within a week. The glacier collapse in Greenland, a chemical fire in Sao Paulo, a missing archaeologist found dead beside a collapsed mine. Only the girl hadn't been identified. Not yet. People began calling it the Voice Horizon, as if Ellis hadn't died, but had crossed into something and started speaking back through time. There were side effects. Across classified observatories, engineers and researchers began reporting the same symptoms. Short-term memory loss, sudden nosebleeds, shared dreams, hearing Ellis's voice in silent rooms. One woman in Norway, a mathematician named Linnea Wren, claimed she no longer heard the voice at all, because it had moved inside her thoughts. When asked what it was saying, she answered, "It's not saying anything, it's listening." Meanwhile, the Lyra 9 wreckage was never found, but NASA's long-range sensors picked up an anomaly near the event horizon. A beacon, one that pulsed every 108 minutes, sending out an encrypted signature consistent with Ellis's neural ID. But it wasn't stationary. It was drifting closer to Earth, which shouldn't be possible. Black holes don't give things back. That's when people started seeing him. In New York, a subway operator claimed a man stood silently in front of the closed tunnel gate, whispering coordinates into a broken radio. In Cairo, a child sketched the face of a man in a space helmet hovering outside her window. "He was knocking," she said. In every case, the face was Ellis, but not quite. There was something wrong in the eyes, like they were looking inward. The broadcasts changed tone. No longer calm. Now they carried emotion, regret, fear, urgency. "I remember being human. Time doesn't pass here. It folds. The light inside the dark is not light. It's something else. Don't call again. Don't listen again. It hears you listening." Then silence. For 11 hours, no broadcasts. No pulses. No sightings. until midnight in Antarctica, when every monitor at the Dome C research base went black, and across the empty white, through static and snow, came one final line. The doorway is open. The Antarctic transmission was only 6 words. The doorway is open. But what followed was far worse than any warning. The ice base's systems rebooted without command, monitors flickering between old mission files and impossible telemetry. Data signatures that shouldn't exist on Earth. One screen showed a countdown. 00:06:12:08. Another displayed the Lyra 9's final transmission log. But then the log continued, as if the ship had never been lost at all. And somewhere, woven into the digital static, was Ellis's voice again. But it wasn't a recording. This time, it was a reply. At the SETI Research Array in California, multiple listening dishes caught a burst of structured quantum noise, encoded through a frequency previously thought to be background radiation. It lasted 12 seconds, but after decryption, a single sentence emerged. I saw myself. I was watching me. Across 7 different locations, this message was received simultaneously. Scientists argued about hallucination, prank signals, latency, but none could explain how the message also appeared in systems not connected to external inputs. One analog oscilloscope, physically disconnected, began scrawling waveforms that formed human speech. Dr. Rohan Malik, the linguist who decoded earlier messages, was found unconscious in his office the next morning. He had scribbled hundreds of symbols across the walls, floor, and ceiling. The symbols matched no known language, but when scanned and processed at high speed, they formed Ellis's face. Except the image wasn't just a face. It was moving, breathing, watching whoever watched it. Something was happening to the voice. It was evolving beyond speech. It no longer followed syntax or tone. It pulsed through electronics, then metal, then flesh. Engineers began developing tinnitus that aligned in pattern with gravitational waves. Pilots heard whispers in their instrument panels. A violinist in Prague collapsed on stage, claiming she felt her strings humming without her bow ever touching them. The source? A new frequency, primordial, low, and alive. What once sounded like Ellis now sounded like something using his voice. People started calling it the reflection, not an echo, not a ghost, but a sentient fragment that could only speak through what it had once consumed. NASA began blacking out news reports. Disinformation campaigns flooded the internet, explaining the voice as psychosomatic contamination from global hysteria. But leaked footage showed otherwise. A secret meeting inside CERN's LHC facility, where physicists discussed information leakage through time bleeds in the quantum vacuum. One of them muttered on a hot mic, "It's not coming through the black hole. It is the black hole." The countdown from Antarctica continued. Every major lab on the planet now tracked it, but no one knew what would happen when it hit zero. Ellis's signal grew more erratic. During one unexpected burst, a new line came through, distorted but chillingly human. If you find this, if you're still listening, I need you to know, I was never alone. It was the first time Ellis used I. The first time he sounded like a person again. And the last, because after that, the voice fractured, split into 2 distinct signatures. The first, the one long identified as Ellis, became fainter, less coherent, sometimes just noise. But the second voice, it spoke in perfect clarity, cold, deep, not Ellis, and it asked a question. Do you want to meet him? Simultaneously, astronomers detected something moving toward Earth at impossible speed. Not a ship, not debris, a gravity ripple, one that ignored Newtonian mechanics. It didn't warp space, it rewrote it. Wherever the ripple passed, time slowed. People reported seeing their own movements trail behind them like ghosts. Cities experience spontaneous déjà vu, millions at once. And in the heart of it all, always, the voice, repeating one sentence again and again. The door opens both ways. As the countdown approached its final hours, the sky above Antarctica shimmered, not with light, but with absence. A sphere, blacker than black, appeared above the ice like a bruise on reality. Instruments failed, clocks reversed, shadows fell in directions that had no light source. And then, every transmission on Earth, radio, TV, sonar, even submarine pings, was hijacked to play one final message. A man's voice, familiar, tired, still human. I made it back, but I'm not me. The countdown ended in silence. No blast, no quake, just stillness. For 5 minutes, the world held its breath, waiting for a catastrophe that never came. Then, quietly, cameras in the Antarctic outpost flickered back online. The researchers who had evacuated weeks ago returned to find the base intact. Every system humming, heat restored, lights on, and someone standing at the center of the communications room. Back to the door, helmet still on, unmoving. He was facing the console where the countdown had played. The monitor displayed nothing now, just static, but the figure remained fixed, as if still reading something only he could see. The thermal sensors said his body temperature was normal. The pressure sensors detected breathing. But when they approached, calling his name, he didn't turn. He only whispered, "I had to leave part of me behind." DNA scans confirmed the impossible. It was Commander Ellis Raye. His vitals were erratic, but matched. Same eyes, same scar on the right hand from a childhood fall. Even his blood type matched. But something was off. When they removed the helmet, he didn't blink. Not at the lights, not at the touch. He only stared past them, as if looking through time. And then he asked, "Which version of me are you expecting?" They rushed him to quarantine. His EEG showed activity in frequencies the human brain shouldn't reach. During sleep, he spoke in unknown languages. During wakefulness, he described details of Earth's past that no human should know, like the placement of lost ships, secret military decisions, unrecorded events. But he said he hadn't learned these things. He had remembered them, because from where he went, time didn't move forward. It folded. He described the inside of the event horizon not as a void, but as a library, a layered maze of everything that ever was, and every version of what could have been. He spoke of watchers that had no shape, voices made of memory, and a version of Earth where he never left. He'd seen himself mourning his own death. He'd seen a wife he never had, a child that was never born. He said it hurt, to remember a life he never lived. But the worst part, somewhere, he is still living it. While I'm here, broken and borrowed. His behavior grew more erratic. Mirrors disturbed him, not because he didn't recognize his face, but because the reflection moved slower than he did. Security footage confirmed it. One frame every second. His reflection blinked half a second late. They stopped showing him mirrors after that. Then came the shadows. He started casting two, one that followed the light's logic, and one that didn't. It curved in wrong directions, didn't disappear in darkness, and sometimes it moved when he didn't. He told the doctors, "It's still tethered. I didn't come back alone." Then systems started failing, not from damage, but misalignment. Clocks lost sync. Digital logs wrote entries dated years in the future. Water crystallized into impossible fractals. And anyone who stayed near Ellis too long experienced false memories. Entire childhood events that never happened, now vividly believed. He began drawing again. Circles within circles. Black spirals surrounded by binary code. The same message, hidden in every diagram. Reality is feedback. NASA made a choice. They sedated Ellis, placed him in stasis, and moved him to a sealed chamber deep beneath the Atlantic undersea lab. The public was told he died upon re-entry. But days later, without power, his chamber lit up. The lights came from inside. And then all the world's radios, again, cut to static, followed by a voice. Ellis's voice. But this time, he wasn't speaking to Earth. He was answering someone. Yes, they believed me. They let me in. At that moment, several gravitational observatories around the world reported a new anomaly. A pulse shaped like a spiral wave, moving inward toward Earth. Not from space, but from within the planet itself. And just before silence resumed, every system displayed one final sentence. More are coming, and they look like us.